It's interesting. Even if you've never coded before, I think you'll come away with a much better understanding of how these apps that we use every day actually work.
What I find so fascinating about mobile UI design is that, it's not just about making things look pretty. It's really that bridge between the user and the functionality of the app. I mean, when you have a well-designed UI, it's intuitive, it guides the user seamlessly. It's almost like an invisible hand.
Yeah, I love that. An invisible hand, it makes you think about those apps where everything just clicks. You never feel lost or confused. It's just smooth sailing. So how do developers actually achieve that? I mean, Professor Zamfori's course, it goes into two main methods, declarative and procedural.
Right. Exactly. Think of declarative design like crafting a blueprint. You're using a language called XML, and you're basically declaring what you want your UI to look like. Like, I want a button here, I want a text box there, this image over here. It's really a visual way of giving instructions.
So it's less about writing line-by-line code and more about just describing the big picture, right? And then procedural is the opposite of that.
Yes. Procedural is more like building brick by brick with code. Each element's position, size, color, everything is meticulously coded, step by step.
Interesting. So it's like choosing between a prefab house and building from scratch, right? I imagine each has its own benefits and drawbacks. Is one better than the other?
It really depends on the project and the developer's preference, ultimately. Professor Zamfori actually presents both in this course, which I think gives us a really well-rounded view. But let's dig deeper into XML first, that blueprint approach. It's really fascinating how these files can define everything about the layout, the look of the UI.
Yeah. The document mentions folders like Reese layout and Reese menu. It sounds almost like a secret code for designers, I've always wondered, especially when I look at a complex app, how do they keep all those elements organized?
It's all about structure and reusability. Think of it like this. In that XML file, each element is a component on the screen. And the properties of that element, like its size, color, or text, they're controlled by attributes within that code.
Oh, so if I were to tweak those properties, then I could actually change the entire look and feel of the app. Just by playing around with those with a few lines of code, I guess.
You got it. And here's where the real magic of XML comes in. Reusability. Let's say you create a really cool button design. You don't have to write that code again and again every time you need that button in your app. You can just reuse that design throughout your app thanks to the include directive.
It's like having a library of design elements just ready to go.
But what about consistency across different devices? Like, I'm thinking about how some apps look amazing on my phone, but then I look at them on a tablet and they just look clunky, Is that a UI design challenge?
Oh, absolutely. Ensuring that an app looks and functions seamlessly across all these different screen sizes and resolutions is a huge hurdle. It's kind of like tailoring the same outfit for different body types, very different body types. So that's where units of measurement really come into play. Pixels, density-independent pixels, or DP, millimeters, even inches.
Wow, that's a lot of units to juggle. Is there a go-to unit that kind of helps to solve this screen size issue?
The hero here is DP, density-independent pixels. Think of it as like a universal translator for screen sizes. So a button, for example, that's designed with a specific DP measurement. It'll appear roughly the same size on a phone with a high-resolution display as it does on a tablet with a much lower-resolution display. Consistency is key here, That makes so much sense. Now I'm starting to understand, the thinking behind all those design choices. It's not just about aesthetics. It's about making sure the user has that smooth experience no matter what device they're using.
Exactly. And it's not just about size. Imagine arranging furniture in a room. You think about the spacing, the wall color, how each piece complements the others. UI design is kind of similar. It uses properties like padding, margins, background color to position those elements within their containers and create that visual flow.
Oh, so it's like digital interior decorating.
Exactly.
You're creating this visual hierarchy to kind of guide the user's eye.
Yeah.
But it can't all be static, right? Users interact with the app, things change and move. So how is that handled?
That's where event handling comes into play, and it's a whole other layer of complexity. Think of it like setting traps throughout the app listeners that are just waiting for these very specific user interactions.
Traps? That sounds a little intense. So is the app constantly watching my every move?
Well, in a way, yes, but it's not as creepy as it sounds, I promise. These listeners are just bits of code, right, that are waiting for very specific cues, a tap on a button, a swipe across the screen, even like text entered into a field. And when that happens, the app, it kind of springs into action and executes the code to respond to that event.
So every interaction I make, like even something as simple as like tapping a like button, is triggering this whole chain reaction behind the scenes.
Precisely. And Professor Zamforo's material, it actually highlights the different approaches that developers can take to handle these events. Sometimes they'll use separate classes for each listener. Other times they'll bed the code directly, like right within that activity class. There's even a streamlined approach for simple clicks using the on-click property directly in the XML.
Wow. It's amazing how much flexibility developers have. Just in terms of how the app responds to user interactions.
Absolutely. And this all ties back to that seamless user experience we were talking about earlier. Think about it. If an app is laggy or it doesn't respond predictably to your actions, it's incredibly frustrating, right?
Right.
Event handling is all about ensuring that those interactions, they just feel fluid and intuitive.
Yeah. So we've got the layout, the visual hierarchy, the way the app responds to my every tap and swipe. What else goes into crafting that perfect UI experience?
Well, we've talked about structure and functionality, but there's actually a whole other dimension to UI design, styling, and theming. This is where developers really go beyond just the nuts and bolts, and they delve into the artistry of creating that really visually appealing and consistent look and feel.
It's like the difference between having a functional website, that's bare bones, and one that is like beautifully designed and branded.
Exactly. And Professor Zamforo makes this really clear distinction between styles and themes. So styles, think of them like outfits for individual elements. You can define the font size, the color, padding, all those fine details. Themes, on the other hand, they apply a consistent visual style across multiple elements or even like an entire activity or application.
So instead of like individually styling every single button in my app, I could create a theme that sets the style for all of them.
Exactly. It saves a ton of time, and it ensures consistency throughout the app. And actually, Android comes with some really cool predefined themes, so you can achieve that kind of polished look right out of the box.
That's really handy. But are developers limited to just those built-in options? Like, what if they want to create something totally unique and custom?
Oh, not at all. Developers, they can create their own styles and themes from scratch, giving them complete control over the app's visual identity. And it's all done in a file called styles.xml, which kind of acts like this central style guide for the app.
So it's like having a fashion designer for your app.
Yeah.
They can craft this unique look and feel, from the color palette to the typography, even down to the animations and stuff.
And the level of control they have is incredible. You can even modify those existing themes to fit your vision, mix and match elements to create something totally custom.
This is all so fascinating. It's like, pulling back the curtain and seeing the artistry and thought that goes into creating these apps that we use every day. I never realized how much planning and detail work goes into it.
It's definitely a complex process, but Professor Zamforo's course material, it also highlights some of the specific challenges that developers face when they're designing specifically for mobile.
Oh, right. We touched on the screen size differences earlier. What other hurdles do they have to overcome?
Well, for starters, mobile devices have this very limited screen real estate, especially compared to desktops. This means designers have to be incredibly strategic about what information they choose to display, how to arrange it, and how to make that navigation really intuitive. It's a delicate balancing act.
So it's not just about shrinking down a desktop UI to fit a smaller screen. It's about, reimagining that entire experience for mobile.
Precisely. Every pixel counts, and designers have to really prioritize what's absolutely essential and find creative ways to condense information, but without sacrificing the functionality. They also have to think about how layouts might need to adapt dynamically to different screen sizes and orientations.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like designing a piece of furniture that can transform to fit different spaces.
And on top of that, there are performance considerations, Mobile devices have limited processing power and memory compared to desktops. So designers have to be mindful of keeping the UI lightweight and efficient. Because even if you have a beautiful app, if it's laggy and slow, well, that's not a good user experience.
So it's like walking this tightrope between aesthetics and performance.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the ever-evolving landscape of mobile design trends and user expectations. What was considered cutting edge a few years ago might feel totally outdated or even clunky today. It's a constantly moving target.
So mobile UI designers basically have to be lifelong learners, constantly adapting and refining their skills to keep up with the latest and greatest.
Absolutely. It's demanding, but also incredibly rewarding field. Think about the impact that well-designed apps have on our daily lives, They connect us with information, with entertainment, with each other, right? They simplify tasks, they enhance our creativity, they even help us stay healthy and organized.
It's amazing to think that something as seemingly simple as like the layout of buttons or the choice of colors can have such a profound impact on our digital experience.
In the next time you open your favorite app, take a moment to appreciate the thought, the skill, and the artistry that went into creating that seamless and engaging experience.
I know I will. It's like a whole new world has opened up for me. But let's bring this back to our listener for a second. What does all of this mean for someone who's not a developer or a designer? Why should they even care about the intricacies of mobile UI design?
Well, for starters, understanding these principles can make you a more informed and discerning app user. You'll start to notice those subtle design choices that make an app truly great, as well as the ones that kind of fall short.
Yeah. It's like having this secret decoder ring for the digital world. You can see through the surface and appreciate the craftsmanship behind those seamless interactions.
And it can even empower you to give more constructive feedback to developers. Instead of just saying, like, I don't like this app, you can actually articulate why certain design choices might be hindering your experience, you know? You can pinpoint the issues with the layout, the navigation, the user flow, offer valuable insights that could actually help to improve the app for everyone.
That's a fantastic point. I never thought of it that way. So, by understanding these principles of good UI design, we can actually become active participants in shaping the digital world around us.
And on a personal level, this knowledge can even spark your own creativity. Maybe you'll be inspired to try and design your own app, or you'll simply find yourself just appreciating the beauty of good design in all aspects of your life. It's all about unlocking a new level of awareness.
Yeah. It sounds like Professor Zamfroyu's course is like a treasure trove of knowledge, not just for aspiring developers, but for anyone who really interacts with technology on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And it's really just the tip of the iceberg, There's so much more to explore in the world of mobile UI design. But for now, I really encourage you to simply pay closer attention to the UI of your favorite apps. Notice the little details, the deliberate choices that make them enjoyable to use.
Yeah, it's like a whole new lens through which to experience the digital world. But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's wrap up this deep dive with some final thoughts and key takeaways. All right, so we've really journeyed through this fascinating landscape of mobile UI design, from XML blueprints to the artistry of styling and theming. We even tackled some of the unique challenges that mobile presents.
Yeah, we've explored how developers, they really strive to create those, seamless, intuitive experiences that we, I think, often take for granted. It's really a blend of technical prowess and creative vision.
Absolutely. It's like they're crafting digital masterpieces. But instead of paint and canvas, they're using code and pixels.
Yeah. And just appreciating, a work of art, I think understanding the techniques and thought processes behind it, it really deepens our experience. So as we wrap up here, what are some key takeaways our listener can walk away with?
Well, I think first and foremost, we've busted that myth that UI design is just about making things look pretty. It's so much more than that.
Precisely. It's about crafting that experience, guiding the user through the app's functionality, with elegance and ease. Think about those apps that you just love to use. Chances are they have a brilliant UI at their heart.
Right. It's like the difference between navigating a well-organized library and getting lost in a chaotic maze. Good UI design, it just makes the digital world accessible and enjoyable.
And as we've learned, there's a whole arsenal of tools and techniques, right, that developers use to achieve this. From declarative design with XML to procedural coding, from meticulously crafting layouts to orchestrating, seamless event handling.
Yeah. And let's not forget about the power of visual hierarchy. Using size, color, spacing to kind of guide the user's eye, highlight the important information. It's like a silent language that speaks volumes about how we interact with the app.
It's really remarkable how much thought goes into every, tap, swipe, and interaction. But I think beyond just appreciating the craft, a key takeaway is that we, as users, we also have a role to play.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just a passive experience. We can be more than just consumers of apps. We can be active participants in shaping the digital world around us.
Exactly. By understanding these principles of good UI design, we can actually provide valuable feedback to developers. We can articulate, what works well, what could be improved, and how certain design choices impact our experience.
It's like being a restaurant critic, right? You're not just enjoying the meal. You're analyzing the flavors, the presentation, the overall ambiance.
Yeah.
And your feedback actually helps the chef refine their craft.
And who knows? Maybe this deep dive has sparked a passion for UI design in one of our listeners. Perhaps we've planted the seed for the next generation of brilliant app creators.
That would be incredible. But even if you don't go on to design the next killer app, I think the knowledge that you've gained today, it can empower you to be a more, discerning and engaged user.
Absolutely.
Pay attention to the apps you use every day. Notice the little details, the design choices that make them enjoyable or even frustrating. Ask yourself, how is the UI guiding my experience? What could be done better? It's like unlocking a new level of awareness. You're seeing the digital world with fresh eyes. And that, I think, is the most valuable takeaway of all.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep appreciating the artistry and ingenuity that shapes that digital landscape that we all navigate every single day.